Hello and welcome to another episode of The Way I See It. Today I'm discussing this article that I read, this essay. It's called The Fate of Empires and Search for Survival by Sir John Glubb, G-L-U-B-B. So he was born in 1897, his father being a regular officer in the Royal Engineers. At the age of 4, he left England for Mauritius, where his father was posted for a 3-year tour of duty. At the age of 10, he was sent to school for a year in Switzerland. These youthful travels may have opened his mind to the outside world at an early age. He entered the Royal Military Academy at Woolwich, or maybe that's pronounced Woolwich. I'm not British, so I don't know. In September 1914, and was commissioned in the Royal Engineers. In April 1915, he served throughout the First World War in France and Belgium, being wounded 3 times and awarded the Military Cross. In 1920, he volunteered for service in Iraq as a regular officer, but in 1926 resigned his commission and accepted an administrative post under the Iraq government. In 1930, however, he signed a contract to serve the Transjordan government, now Jordan. From 1939 to 1956, he commanded the famous Jordan Arab Legion, which was in reality the Jordan Army. Since his retirement, he has published 17 books, chiefly on the Middle East, and has lectured widely in Britain, the United States, and Europe. This was written when, I guess this was published, which is in 1976. So he wrote this, The Fate of Empires and Search for Survival, in 1976. And I just read it very recently, like 2 weeks ago, and I was struck. I'm telling you, I was struck by it. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about it here, and I'm going to go through the summary of it and just kind of break it down. I would highly encourage you to read this. It's an essay, so it's not too long. It looks like about 26 pages long on my PDF version. I read this as a PDF. It's 26 pages long that way. I'm sure you can get it in other formats, maybe different amounts of pages. And it was, I believe this version was free. I got it online, just on the internet, found the PDF online, click save as an ebook. You know, when you click the export thing on the bottom of your phone, that little box with the arrow that goes up. And I clicked that and I saved it as an ebook and I read it. The overarching point of this essay is that he's looked at these empires over the course of 3,000 years and discovered that they all wane or die out after about 250 years, and we're coming up on 250 here in the United States. 2026 will be our 250-year birthday. So we are on the waning end, and and as I'm reading this essay, I'm thinking, we're just like all these others. We're just like them. There's nothing right now that's causing me to think that the United States will be any different from any of these other places when it comes to our ability to sustain ourselves or keep going or whatever. Like, we're crashing and burning. It's happening. And that's why I'm doing this video, just to say, read this essay and fasten your seatbelts. So, in the summary, which is the very last part, which is part 39, these are kind of sectioned off as you go through the essay, section 39. As numerous points of interest have arisen in the course of this essay, I close with a brief summary to refresh the reader's mind. So we're going to go in points A, B, C, and so on. A. We do not learn from history because our studies are brief and prejudiced. This is true even now. I mean, our study of American history is kind of separated for some reason from the study of world history. Or we'll learn about Georgia history. We'll learn about perhaps Greek history, or, if whatever we can learn from African history. I know that we don't have as much. And of course, people who are well studied in African history will be like, that's because you're racist and you need to be having more African history studies in school. Sure, I agree. We need to. But the point is, we don't piece these all together as one overarching history. We tend to look at this history and that history and that history. And so we don't connect and see that there's a bigger view we need to be seeing. We tend to be too specialized in our studies of history. B. In a surprising manner, 250 years emerges as the average length of national greatness. At the beginning, he gives several different empires throughout history and points that, each one of them was between like 245 years to maybe 267 years was kind of like the tops. So like, we may make it that far, but we're already falling behind China. So I'm not saying like we're going to collapse and break up necessarily. For example, England, he points to the British Empire and, their time of greatness. And even though they're no longer great on the national stage, the international stage, as far as no longer controlling vast amounts of land and economy, they are still a country. Like Great Britain is still a country. So that may happen to us. Or we may break up into a couple of different countries, but I'm not saying that we're all going to become slaves to somebody else necessarily. Just that the greatness of the United States of America is entering the waning stages here. If we are to follow the path that has been followed by every other great civilization for the past 3,000 years, and I see no reason why we should be so pompous as to think that we will not follow that path. So, in letter C, this average has not varied for 3,000 years. Does it represent 10 generations? He talks about that earlier in the episode, in the essay, that it's about 10 generations if you count about 25 years. Every 25 years you have kind of a new group of folks who are leading the country or whatever. So that's about 10 generations. D, the stages of the rise and fall of great nations seems to be, and here we go in a bullet list, and I'll put those right here as I go down. The age of pioneers, or the outburst, the age of outburst. So you read about the early days of the United States, right? I was just reading about these folks in the previous video. They were pioneers. I'm also reading another book called The Pioneers, and it's about the people who left Massachusetts and started settling in Ohio, and this is in the 1780s. This is right after we had become a nation. The age of pioneers, the age of conquests, the age of commerce. So once you've kind of conquested a lot of this land, you start really developing your commerce, right? And we read about that in our history. You started having the railroads being built up and all these abilities to trade and do business across various parts of our economy, and just this incredible growth in the United States government, from the early 1800s to the early 1900s. The age of affluence, so a lot of boats are lifted, right? A lot of the high tide lifts all boats, and so people all over the country, even those who were poor, became less poor, and those who were rich became more rich. But most folks in the country start to do well. You start to see this rise in middle class here in America. Then you have the age of intellect. So you move into this time when it's not just about what you can do and what you can accomplish and how you can go out there and conquer things. It's like now we're going to really nurture our minds and nurture our souls and feed our intellects. Then that turns into, I don't know why this happens, because I would think the age of intellect would be a good thing, right? But then it turns into the age of decadence. And I think it's because the more you learn, you start to become more pessimistic or something. So in the age of decadence, point E, he breaks that down kind of. The decadence is marked by defensiveness. Does that ring a bell? Pessimism, materialism, frivolity, an influx of foreigners. Although we would say here in the United States, because of the way our country was established, the whole thing has been an influx of foreigners, right? We've been constantly influxing foreigners. But even on a smaller scale in a certain part of the country where you may have had mostly just folks who were born and raised in that town or that county, growing up in that county, and then you start to see a lot of immigrants come in, you can kind of see this on a smaller scale. But overall, an influx of foreigners, and some people, of course, today would point to like the crisis at the southern border and be like, that's it. But anyway, the welfare state. So again, defensiveness, pessimism, materialism, these are marks of decadence. Decadence meaning decaying. Something is decaying. Decadence. The welfare state. And a weakening of religion. Decadence, this is letter F, is due to too long a period of wealth and power, selfishness, love of money, and the loss of a sense of duty. And you hear people nowadays lament kind of that from like 40 and 50 and 60 years ago. They'll be like, people were like so proud to serve their country and help others, and where have all the good men gone kind of thing. And now people are just out there screaming about their own personal rights, right? Gone are the days when Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. That's the sense of duty, and people are lamenting that that is gone. That's a sign of the decadence in our country. G, the life histories of great states are amazingly similar. So we're moving past those. Now we're kind of back to looking at the overall fate of empires. The life histories of great states, like the United States, not individual states, but states like the Roman Empire. The life histories are amazingly similar and are due to internal factors. So the internal factors may seem to vary, but the life histories are the same for some reason. Their falls are diverse. So the reason why each individual empire fell may be different because they are largely the result of external causes. In our case, it's China. I'm going to call that one. I'm going to keep harping on that one. That's going to be it. History, and here's the last point, history should be taught as the history of the human race, though, of course, with emphasis on the history of the student's own country. So I think he's trying to say maybe we could change this fate of empires and cause an empire or somewhere at some point in time to survive, right? The subtitle there, the fate of empires and search for survival. I feel like maybe he was saying, like, I'm searching, is there a way for an empire to survive? By looking at this and by teaching history in a broad scale to your people, are you allowing for them to maybe buffer themselves against this coming fall? It's too late for us, I believe. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I'm not a prophet. So even though I have a friend who says I'm a prophet, I'm not a prophet. But when I read stuff like this, I feel like this guy's a prophet and he's telling me something. And maybe if I hold on to that truth, that gives me some sort of prophetic knowledge. God uses that to grow some sort of wisdom in me, to prepare me for something in the future, perhaps. But maybe if someone at some point can read this kind of stuff and use it to shape a large group of people in their study of history, there can be some empire somewhere at some point in the future that can survive. I'm not sure. Maybe that's never going to happen because God is never going to will that to happen. The Bible says that the Lord is the one who establishes kings and takes them out, you know. He's the one that says this is where I want this nation to be and when I want it to start and when I want it to end. And then I want this to happen, right? He did that with his own people, the people of Israel. He said, you're going to be enslaved. You're going to be carted off from your homeland. And you're going to be made to live in a foreign place and serve other people. And that's going to happen. And it happened because the Lord willed it. So he may will something different for the United States, but ultimately it's in his hands. But anyway, I just thought this was a very interesting essay. And again, I would encourage you to read it. The Fate of Empires and Search for Survival by Sir John Glubb. I just can't say his name any other way because I think of fish, like glub, glub, glub. So remember to like this video and please subscribe to my channel. I'm at 148. Pretty proud of that. And I would love for you to come and join me on Locals, thewayIseeit.locals.com. And there's a paywall, but mine is very low, $2 per, month. Other folks, you can be part of many different communities. You can like and you can view, but you cannot comment or post unless you pay. That's the way it is on that whole site. It's not me. I would let it be free if I could, but I can't. So I choose, there's one other website, one other group that I'm part of, Davis Nation, that I choose to pay. I don't have to pay for my own. I have to pay to be on hers. And then I'm also part of like the Reuben Report and Tulsi Gabbard's group and a couple of other groups, but I don't pay for any of those, so I don't ever post on any of those places. I just go through and see what other people are posting, and I'll click like, that kind of thing. So again, if you don't want to be censored, come join my group. And I hope to see y'all around. Remember to scroll down to the description below. There, I will put a link to this, actually to this essay in there. And there's also all my handles for social media and stuff. So come and interact with me on social media as well. And thank you so much for watching.